Exposed, the incredible life-changing secret that bound us together for 12 amazing years. Jake's heart raced as he read the words, the screen's glow illuminating the grimy workshop around him. The secret pulsed in the air, heavy like a storm cloud, waiting to burst. A tight knot formed in his stomach as memories of the laughter-filled nights and shared dreams with Maria swirled through his mind. They had stood shoulder to shoulder since childhood, navigating the small-town rhythms of Maplewood, yet this truth threatened not only their friendship, but the very essence of the community they cherished. He remembered clutching his mother's hand as a boy, watching her work 2 jobs, her face etched with exhaustion, yet glowing with resilience. Behind the grease-stained facade of his mechanic shop, Jake held dreams of grandeur, of opening his own garage to make her proud. But those dreams twinkled in the distance, far away from the beating heart of Maplewood. Each evening, after long hours spent fixing cars, Jake found solace at the local diner. The smell of bacon, greasy spoons clinking, and the laughter from familiar faces warmed the air. Maria, with her bright ambitions and infectious spirit, lit up the booth where they'd meet, sharing hopes about the bakery her family owned. They laughed about silly things and imagined their futures, moments stitched together like the fabric of their town. But then came the corporate giant, looming like a black cloud over their beloved bakery. It wasn't just a store, it was a sanctuary, the place where every joy and sorrow was celebrated. Jake's tight chest echoed a deep-seated fear. If they lost this piece of Maplewood, they lost a part of themselves. Jake, we have to do something. Maria's voice, brimming with urgency, snapped him from his thoughts. This bakery means everything to our community. That night, inspired, they sat up late, brainstorming ways to rally the townspeople. Bake sales, town meetings, community events, they share their hopes with the world, pouring their hearts into each flyer and speech, igniting a movement fueled by passion. They unearthed stories of past struggles and triumphs, drawing neighbors closer together, a tapestry woven from the threads of resilience. But doubt nipped at Jake, growing like a vine threatening to choke their unified spirit. As they delved deeper, Maria revealed a well-guarded family secret, one that hung heavy like a forgotten sin in the shadows. The revelation tested their unwavering loyalty, sending waves of tension through the air. Jake's sense of justice swirled within him. Would this truth irrevocably change their mission and bond? Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now, let's continue. Moments morphed into tension, leaving Jake fraught with uncertainty. He loved Maria, but what if this secret threatened the trust they built? What would it mean for the bakery, their dreams? As they stood on the precipice of a fight for their town, reality ripped through, challenging Jake to either uphold the truth or preserve their fragile friendship. Would they emerge victorious, stronger than before, or would this scandal tear them apart forever? Time loomed, and Maplewood's hope hung on their ability to navigate the turning tides. The clock ticked as the battle was just beginning. The next morning, a cold breeze swept through Maplewood, stirring the fallen leaves that danced along the sidewalk. Jake trudged to the diner, the familiar sounds welcoming him in dishes clattering, laughter echoing, and the smell of coffee brewing. But today, an electric charge hung in the air, adding weight to each step. He could feel the eyes of the townsfolk, their unspoken words pressing down on him like the clouds above. Maria was already there, sitting at their usual booth. Her hands cradled a cup of steaming coffee, but her eyes were distant, lost in a world of her thoughts. The vibrant spark that usually illuminated her face was dimmed, and Jake's heart sank at the sight. He slid into the seat across from her, unsure of how to break the brewing tension. "Hey," he said softly, searching her eyes for any sign of reassurance. "Hey," she replied, her voice barely above a whisper. The weight of the undisclosed secret loomed larger than ever between them. The diner was a microcosm of their community, filled with regulars who had grown up with them, sharing their hopes and dreams. But that sense of belonging seemed fragile now. As Maria stirred her coffee, Jake's thoughts raced back to what she had revealed. How could something so deeply rooted in her family's past cast shadows over their fight for the bakery? Could they trust each other completely moving forward? "We need to talk about what you shared," he said, his voice steadier than he felt. "It's a lot to process." She looked down, swirling her spoon in the mug, her brow creased with worry. "I didn't want to burden you with it. I thought we'd figure everything out without bringing it up. But now we can't ignore it. What if this comes out? The town deserves the truth, but what if it hurts us?" Maria met his gaze, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. "I don't want to lose what we have, Jake. This secret has the potential to destroy us, but it's also a part of who I am. I can't pretend it doesn't exist." His heart ached for her pain and the burden she carried. "We've always been more than our pasts. We've fought for each other, for this town." Jake leaned forward, his urgency rising. "Let us think strategically. We can bring the community together, no matter what happens. They trust us." Maria's shoulders relaxed slightly at his words. "You're right, but we need to find a way to control the narrative. If we let someone else dictate how this unfolds, we'll lose everything." Fueled by determination, they spent hours mapping out their plans. They could sense the urgency. The town meeting was just days away. Ideas flowed between them, sketching a path forward despite the storm cloud looming overhead. Each suggestion carried energy, healing the fissures created by doubt. As they pieced together the strategy, laughter began to bubble up again, a glimpse of normalcy in the undertow of uncertainty. But just as hope embraced them, Jake noticed a figure at the window, skepticism etched across a familiar face. Their neighbor, Mr. Thompson, watched them closely, a frown set deep on his features. Underneath his brow, knowing eyes seemed to lay bare every secret, every vulnerability. Jake turned back to Maria, his stomach flipping. What if he knows? The room felt cold. The clock ticked louder, marking the minutes that raced forward while anxiety gripped the very air they breathed. Their lives were moments away from unraveling or stitching back together, a choice lingering like a string pulled too tight. Would they stand united against the forces threatening Maplewood? Or would the shadows of the past pull them under? With their hearts pounding, Jake and Maria prepared to face whatever storm was coming, knowing the moment of truth was drawing near. Jake's heart raced as he tried to shake off the feeling of dread coiling in his stomach. He looked back at Mr. Thompson, whose frown deepened as he caught Jake's worried gaze. The tension hung like a thick fog. It was as if the entire diner had pressed pause, waiting for something, anything, to break the stillness. "Let's not worry about him," Maria whispered, sensing his anxiety. "We have each other, and that's what matters." His eyes were still glued to Mr. Thompson. But what if he heard something? Maybe he's just waiting for the right moment to spill it to everyone. "Jake, we can't afford to be paralyzed by fear," she said, her determination sparking back to life. "We've faced worse before. Remember when we first wanted to open the bakery? Everyone thought we were crazy. We turned that doubt into support." He nodded, grasping her hand across the table. It felt warm and real, a grounding force amid the chaos brewing around them. "You're right. It's just it feels different this time. The stakes are higher. Our future is on the line." The bell above the diner door chimed, disrupting their thoughts. A few new customers entered, laughter bubbling as they took their seats. It brought life back into the room, but Jake could still feel the heaviness. "Let us make sure nobody else learns about the secret unless we choose to tell them," Maria said, her eyes bright with fierce resolve. "We will control this. Together." She took a deep breath, her focus shifting from fear to strategy. The remnants of hope illuminated her features again, and it made Jake feel lighter. As they huddled over their plans, mapping out a way to reassure the town before the meeting, images of their vision filled his mind. The bakery wasn't just a dream of flour and sugar, it was a manifestation of their bond, their shared commitment to Maplewood. They envisioned it as a place for community, where people could come together no matter their past to share in something beautiful. They spend the next few hours locked in a productive rhythm, bouncing ideas off each other, laughter mingling with their serious tones. The clock seemed to fly. Food memories surfaced as they spoke of baking classes for kids, local gatherings, and community events that would slowly draw everyone in. Their energy was contagious, and for a moment, the thought of Mr. Thompson faded. But then, the door swung open again, and in walked a few more familiar faces, drawn by the smell of breakfast. Among them was Caroline, a key influencer in town with a reputation for being sharp-tongued and skeptical. Her eyes caught Jake's, and he felt an unfamiliar tingle of apprehension as her lips curled into a knowing smile. "Look who's plotting," she called out, her voice loud enough to command attention. The chatter quieted, curiosity spreading through those nearby. Jake exchanged a panicked glance with Maria. "Do you think she knows?" he asked, the anxiety creeping back into his voice. Maria's expression mirrored his fear. "We have to stay calm, act natural," she urged, their hands still entwined, a lifeline in the gathering storm. "Hey, Caroline," Jake replied, mustering a smile, though it felt forced. "Just discussing some exciting plans for the bakery. You know, the usual." As the words left his mouth, he could hear a noise rumbling from the back of the diner. Whispers. They were spreading, intertwining thoughts bouncing around as the tension thickened again. Maria shot him a concerned look. Jake could almost feel her heart racing in sync with his. What did Caroline really know, and how far had the rumors spread? The stakes had just risen, and they had to decide who their allies truly were in this battle for their future before it was too late. Could they confront the whispers and rally the town behind them? Or would the shadows of secrets consume the dreams they had fought so hard to build? Jake's heart raced, the weight of Caroline's gaze pressing down on him like a heavy stone. He held Maria's hand tighter, grounding himself. The diner felt smaller, enclosed by whispers and wary eyes. People turned their heads slightly, intrigued and eager for the latest scoop. Caroline sauntered over, her confidence on full display.
"Plans, huh?
That's quite the secrecy you two have going on. Mind sharing with the rest of us?" Her tone danced on the edge of challenge and amusement, sharp enough to cut. "We're just Jake started, fumbling for the right words. We're excited about our bakery. It's going to bring everyone together." He spoke louder than he intended, drawing even more attention. The tension in the air thickened, each second stretching into an eternity as uncertain faces shifted in expectation. "Together? Is that what you call it?" Caroline raised an eyebrow. "Last week, I heard some alarming things. Something about a secret." The chatter buzzed again as people leaned in, eager to catch the latest revelation. Jake's stomach knotted. He could feel the pulse of panic rising within him. "Don't listen to rumors," Maria interjected, her voice assertive yet quivering with uncertainty. "We're just trying to build something great for the community. Can't we focus on the positive?" Caroline smirked, but didn't respond immediately. Instead, she glanced around the diner, noticing the half-finished plates and cups of coffee that now seemed forgotten in the growing storm of intrigue. "A bakery is lovely, but secrets can get messy," she finally said, her voice laced with mock concern. Jake opened his mouth, wanting to protest, wanting to defend their dream. But his words eluded him, tangled in the rising tide of apprehension enveloping the room. It was as if the walls were closing in, blurring the reality they had fought so hard to build. Out of the corner of his eye, he saw Mr. Thompson watching closely. The man's frown had deepened, his silent judgment palpable. Jake felt the weight of an entire town's opinions begin to pile on his shoulders. "Guys, let us just take a breath," he said, forcing himself to remain calm. "We're all friends here. Let us keep this about the bakery." Caroline crossed her arms, tilting her head slightly, as if pondering a riddle. "Friends? Is that right? Because I think you're keeping something more than just flour and sugar behind that counter." The laughter that followed felt like ice running through Jake's veins. "Enough!" Maria exclaimed, surprising them all. Her voice rang out clear as a bell, cutting through the murmurings. She stood a little taller, a spark igniting in her eyes. We have a right to our dreams, don't we? And if you're so concerned about rumors, maybe it's time we set the record straight. A moment of silence fell. Everyone was taken aback by Maria's boldness. Jake's heart swelled with admiration, but uncertainty knotted back into his stomach. Was this the right approach? Maria, wait, Jake whispered, but she kept her eyes locked on Caroline. I'm tired of playing games, she continued, her voice now steady. Let us stop pretending everything is fine while we're sweating through hidden agendas. If anyone has a problem with us, let us talk about it openly. The capital of tension hovered in the air, and Jake found himself holding his breath. Would this declaration build them up or tear them apart? Caroline glanced at her audience, gauging their reactions. There was a mixture of surprise and delight, some eyes brightening with hope. Maybe Maria had struck a chord, sparking something new amid the whispers and doubts. But then, just as the atmosphere began to shift, Caroline leaned closer, lowering her voice to a conspiratorial whisper that only Jake and Maria could catch. Then let us see what new secrets come to light at the town meeting tomorrow. Shall we? Jake's heart sank. They were about to enter a storm they couldn't control, a battle in the open. What would unfold? In that moment, he braced himself for the truth that lay ahead. The next morning, the sun rose, casting a warm glow over the small town, but for Jake and Maria, the light felt dim. They gathered their thoughts, pacing nervously in their kitchen, the aroma of fresh coffee barely able to mask the tension thick in the air. Are we really ready for this? Jake asked, his voice a blend of anxiety and determination. He stared out the window, watching neighbors greet each other, their smiles contrasting starkly with the storm brewing inside him. Maria took a deep breath, her fingers brushing against the flowered countertop. We have to be. It's about time we take a stand. The bakery is a part of us now. It represents everything we've worked for. She squared her shoulders, her resolve igniting a flicker of hope within Jake's chest. As they left their home, the din of the town meeting echoed around them. Residents were already filling the community hall, whispers of speculation dancing on the breeze. Jake and Maria shared a glance, a silent affirmation of their united front. Inside, the hall buzzed with chatter. Townsfolk gathered in clusters, the air thick with curiosity and judgment. Jake felt a wave of unease wash over him as he noticed familiar faces. He could spot Mrs. Peterson, her sharp gaze piercing through the crowd, and young Jimmy, who had a knack for spreading gossip like wildfire. Before they approached the podium, Caroline beckoned them with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. Look who decided to show up, she said, her voice smooth like syrup, but Jake could sense the anticipation behind her words. Let's see how you handle the heat. Jake swallowed hard, his heart racing again. We're here to talk about our bakery, he forced out, taking Maria's hand tightly once more. The room quieted, all perspectives turning toward them. Time hung suspended as Jake started to share their vision, the hope, the dreams, the importance of community. But every word felt heavy, weighed down by the lingering questions in his mind. Should you really be running a bakery? One voice cut through. It sent a ripple of surprise through the crowd. It was Mr. Thompson, a respected community member, his frown mirroring the doubt that haunted Jake. We're doing this for everyone, Maria responded quickly, her voice slicing through the murmur. Not just for ourselves. We want to create a space where people can come together, where children can laugh and families can bond over baked goods. A few nods emerged from the crowd, yet others crossed their arms, skepticism in their eyes. Jake could feel heat rising in his cheeks, fear trying to worm its way in. Would it be enough? Enough with the fairy tales, Caroline interrupted with a scoff. Everyone knows the real story here. You're hiding something. The tension swelled, palpable and thick. Heads turned, curiosity igniting rumors in hushed voices. Jake's uncertainty clawed at him. What's the secret? Someone finally shouted, the question ringing out with desperate anticipation. Jake's heartbeat thundered in his ears. This was it. Either the truth would bind them to the community or rip their dreams apart. He looked at Maria. Look, he blurted out, his voice steadying. "We have faced struggles, but that's life, right? Secrets can't define us." He could almost hear his own heart thundering against it as he tried to maintain control. The room fell silent. Then a voice, shaky yet strong, broke through. "But we can't move forward unless we confront our past," Maria added. "Maybe it's time for all of us to be honest, to share what we've been afraid of." The vulnerability of her words hung in the air, an invitation for transparency. Would they take her up on it? Before anyone could respond, another familiar face stepped forward. Maria, it was Lucy, her brow furrowing and remorse reflecting in her eyes. "I've heard things, and I think it's time we all come clean." Jake took a deep breath, the walls of their world trembling with uncertainty, while the shifting dynamics of the room hinted at a deeper, more complex history waiting to unravel. What truths would rise to the surface, and how would it change everything they worked for? With anticipation clawing at his insides, he wondered, what would they reveal? What secrets lay beneath the surface, waiting to reshape their lives forever? Lucy took a step closer to the podium, her hands fidgeting at her sides. The murmurs in the crowd faded, replaced by a palpable tension that pressed down on everyone. Jake could feel the weight of her presence, each second stretching longer than the last. "Last year," Lucy began, her voice wavering slightly, "I lost my job unexpectedly. You know how hard it was for me on my own. A few weeks later, in a moment of desperation, I made a decision that felt small but became a lot bigger than I imagined." Her eyes darted to the floor, as if the weight of her confession was too heavy to bear. Jake's stomach churned. Was she about to blame them for what happened next? "I started talking poorly about your bakery after a few drinks with friends," Lucy admitted, her cheeks flushing with shame. "I thought I was just venting." Didn't he realize how quickly those words could spread? A low gasp rippled through the audience. Jake glanced at Maria, and he could see a flicker of disbelief in her eyes, but she encouraged Lucy with a gentle nod. There was something uniquely brave about the way Lucy stood in that moment, baring her soul. "Afterward, I felt awful," Lucy continued, her voice gathering strength. "You too made this town better, and instead of supporting you, I let my frustration tear down what you built. The bakery isn't just a dream for you, but for everyone." A wave of murmurs surged through the crowd, some in solidarity, others laced with skepticism. The heat in Jake's cheeks ignited further, both in embarrassment and a strange sense of relief. Their shared pain was starting to untangle. "Lucy, thank you for being brave," Maria said softly, her voice unwavering. "But it can't just be one person's words that define us. We all have our fears and faults." As the crowd shifted, Jake saw understanding dawning on many faces. It was as if Lucy's confession had opened a crack in the wall of mistrust that had formed around them. He took a step forward, gathering courage from the warmth radiating from Maria's hand, still tightly clasped in his. "Since we're sharing," Jake started, his voice steadying as he continued, "I'll go next. We've made mistakes, lots of them. The truth is, we opened the bakery out of pure love, but we didn't have much capital to start. We borrowed money from, well, let us just say from the very people who now seem to doubt us." There were shifting glances, an exchange of surprise rippling through the crowd that could throw everything into chaos. "You think you can come clean, but you don't know the whole truth about your past," Eric said, smirking, his voice slicing through the camaraderie like a knife. Every breath hung suspended as he spoke. What could he possibly reveal? Jake's heart raced at what this meant. Would it change everything? Would it tear their lives apart? The dynamics of the room shifted yet again, and Jake steeled himself for what was to come. Secrets were starting to leak, and the night was only just beginning to unravel. Jake's heart pounded in his chest, a steady thrum of dread. Questions whirled in his mind. What secret could Eric be hiding? Jake sensed the crowd tightening like a string pulled too taut. The warm camaraderie that had been building felt ready to snap under the weight of Eric's accusation. Eric stepped forward, a self-satisfied grin plastered on his face. "You two think you've got it all figured out," he began, his voice deliberately mocking. "But there are things even you don't know about your own bakery about each other." He paused, letting the silence stretch, savoring the moment. Jake glanced at Maria, her brow furrowed in concern. Their bond had been tested, and now it seemed threatened by this unexpected intrusion. The crowd's murmurs rose again, a blend of curiosity and apprehension. "Are you really going to do this?" Maria finally spoke up, her voice steady but laced with anxiety. "Tonight was about sharing, supporting. Why try to tear us apart?" Eric shrugged, a nonchalant gesture that felt cruel in a room filled with vulnerability. "I came here tonight to set the record straight. You need to know that there are people who believe in you and those that don't. Like me." He leaned closer, locking eyes with Jake. "Do you remember your first big order? The one that put your bakery on the map?" The room fell silent. A few people shifted uncomfortably in their chairs. Jake swallowed hard, recalling the intense rush of excitement that had come with that first order of 100 cookies for a local school event. It was the moment they realized their dream could reach beyond their kitchen. "Yes," Jake replied finally, but he sensed Eric was digging for something deeper. "Let me remind you," Eric continued, his smirk growing. "That order wouldn't have happened if it weren't for my connections. I helped you land that deal. I set it up for you." Jake stiffened, confusion swirling in his mind. "What are you saying?" He could feel a hot flush creeping up his neck. The support he once begrudged Eric for had suddenly roared back with a vengeance. "You think you achieved everything on your own? That you built this bakery from nothing? No, it was a team effort. You two just had the front row seats to the show." Shock ran through the crowd. Whispers bounced back and forth like a ping-pong ball, each volley intensifying the palpable tension in the room. Jake clenched his fists, fury rising. "So what? You want to take credit for our hard work? We put in the hours. We baked every single pie, every loaf." Eric laughed, but there was a sharpness in his tone. "You think the baking was all it took? Do you realize how many people helped you get where you are? It's not about what you did. It's about the people who propelled you forward. And they're not here tonight." Maria stepped in front of Jake, boldly facing Eric. "You're wrong. We might have had help, but we worked for every slice of success. We listened. We learned. Maybe you just don't want to see that. It's cute how you think your little bakery exists in a vacuum." Eric dismissed her with a wave. "This town is rife with jealousy and competition, and your little revelation fest isn't going to change that." The sentiment in the room shifted again, some folks shaking their heads and others nodding in agreement with Eric's comments. Jake could feel himself slipping into despair. Was all their hard work overshadowed by the contributions of others? "What's your point?" Jake pushed back. "If you're here to remind us of our failures, you're just digging graves. We need to lift each other up." But Eric chuckled, the sound laced with condescension. "You need to realize that not everyone is willing to stand behind you when the tide turns. Not everyone wants you to succeed." The atmosphere grew thick with tension as uncertainty and anger gripped the crowd. Jake's pulse raced, dread settling in his stomach. Everyone had been so vulnerable, so open. Was this really how it would end? Just as Jake thought the moment couldn't get any more intense, Lucy stepped forward hesitantly, her voice trembling. "I know we all have our pasts and our mistakes, but maybe it's time to stop letting those define us. If we keep tearing each other down, we'll never be able to build something beautiful together. We need to decide who we want to be." The crowd held its breath, contemplating Lucy's earnest plea. In that moment of silence, Jake felt the power of shared experience. He clenched Maria's hand tighter, knowing that despite the chaos, they still had one another. But just as hope flickered in the air, a low voice broke through the calm. "Well, if Lucy thinks she can save you, I have a few secrets of my own to share." Eyes turned, panic creeping in once again. Jake felt his heart drop. Who else was ready to expose something that could tear them apart? The road ahead was fraught with uncertainty, yet he could feel the team they had built faltering but still standing. What more hidden truths would come to light, and could they endure yet another blow? The crowd buzzed with anxiety, tension tightening like a noose. Jake felt his heart race, each pulse echoing louder than the last. He turned to the source of the low voice, searching for the owner of those words. It was Sam, someone they thought was an ally, a quiet partner who had always skated under the radar. Sam, what do you mean? Jake asked, trying to mask the uncertainty in his voice. What secrets? Sam glanced around nervously, as if weighing the consequences of what he was about to say. I didn't plan to bring this up so soon, he said, his tone wavering. But I've carried this for years. The truth is, we've all been influenced by circumstances we didn't even realize were controlling our paths.
What are you talking about?
Maria said, confusion furrowing her brow. The room had devolved into chaos as murmurs erupted around them, the atmosphere thickening like a summer storm. Remember that big competition last year? The one we lost? Sam began, his voice trembling but gaining strength. Everyone thought it was just a fluke. But I knew otherwise. I overheard a conversation. Eric had connections with the judges. They were biased against us. Gasps echoed through the crowd, shock radiating like electricity through the air. Eric's smug expression faltered briefly before he regained his composure. Wow, you've gone desperate, Sam, Eric sneered, crossing his arms. You think anyone cares about your little conspiracy theory? Just look at our bakery as progress. You still haven't moved beyond this association. Maybe that's what you want people to feel, Sam shot back, his voice gaining confidence. Your control only goes so far. You can't keep spinning tales to hide the truth forever. Jake found himself immobilized by Sam's revelation. They had faced challenges, each one like a battering wave, but this? It struck a chord deeper than all the others. Every moment of doubt, every struggle felt suddenly more significant. I can't believe you'd say that, Eric snapped, his grin slipping back. You're trying to pin all your failures on me? This is a joke. A desperate attempt to gain sympathy. Is it really? What if it's not? What if all those times we struggled, those late nights at the bakery, when we thought we were alone, what if the odds were stacked against us while you sat in the shadows? Jake couldn't hold back anymore. His voice rose, fueled by frustration. I believed in you both, Sam said quietly, his vulnerability piercing through the chaos. But the truth deserves to be shared. Together we built something that was more than any of us expected, but we need to illuminate the shadows to really grow. Jake looked to Maria and saw her eyes flooding with urgency. They had come so far together, yet how many secrets were still buried deep? Sam's admission sparked a fire, but it also ignited a fierce need for clarity. Then share it, Maria implored Sam. Share every detail, no more half-truths. If we are truly a team, we need to be open. Let's be done with any lies that have kept us apart. The crowd fell silent, anticipation heavy in the air. Jake felt both terrified and exhilarated. Fear twisted in his gut, unsure of what revelations lay ahead. With a nod, Sam took a deep breath. All right. I won't hold back anymore, and neither should any of you. It's time you tasted the secrets that have lingered like stale bread over these years. Just as Sam prepared to speak, a loud crash reverberated from the back of the room, the door swinging open violently. The unexpected noise pulled every gaze and sent hearts racing. Jake's gut twisted with uncertainty. What had just barged in? Would it be a friend's desperate plea or another dagger aimed at their fragile unity? Could they handle the truth? Or was this just the beginning of another round of turmoil? The door banged against the wall, the sound echoing in the stunned silence that followed. A figure stepped into the room, panting as if they'd run a marathon. It was Lisa, their former teammate, her wild hair tousled and sweat glistening on her forehead. Lisa? Maria breathed, disbelief swimming in her eyes. What are you doing here? I couldn't just sit back anymore, Lisa said, her voice a mix of urgency and fear. You have to understand there's something you all need to know. Jake felt another wave of tension wash over the crowd. Lisa had left abruptly months ago, and her return felt like a bolt from the blue. What could she possibly add to the chaos? Jake tried to read the expression on her face, but her eyes were wide, scanning the room as if searching for someone or something. Look, I know this isn't the right time, she continued, but we don't have much time. Eric has been messing with more than the competitions. It's bigger than that. Bigger? What do you mean? Sam pressed, crossing his arms defensively. Lisa hesitated, glancing at Eric, who stood motionless, an inscrutable mask slipping over his features. I found something, she said at last, her voice low yet insistent. Evidence of money being funneled into the wrong hands. There are bribes, contracts, things that could ruin lives. Gasps soon turned into a low murmur, and the crowd swelled with disbelief. No, you're lying. Eric finally spoke, the bravado draining from him. How could you possibly know that? I have proof, Lisa replied, and with a quick motion, she pulled out a folder from beneath her jacket and held it up like a beacon. You all deserve to see how deep this goes. Don't you want to know if our dreams were crushed because of some underhanded scheme? Jake's heart raced as he processed this revelation. Unfathomable anger bubbled in him. Lingering resentment over missed opportunities flashed through his mind, overshadowed by the flicker of hope that maybe, just maybe, they had a chance to fight back. Lisa, this is huge, Maria said, moving closer to her. You really think you can expose Eric? I think we can expose all of them, Lisa replied, her determination hardening. But we have to act fast. If Eric has connections, he might already know what I discovered. They won tea, just let us walk away. Eric feigned confidence, yet Jake noted the slight tremble in his clenched fists. You're making wild accusations. You think anyone is going to believe a bunch of disgruntled bakers over a successful business owner like me? Successful? Sam retorted, his anger resurfacing. At what cost? If you think we'll stand around and let you manipulate us anymore, you're mistaken. Tension surged in the room, a thick cloud of doubt mingling with determination. The unity they had fought to build was balancing on a knife's edge, yet Jake felt the flickers of collaborative determination. For once, the stakes were high enough to demand unity. Jake stepped forward, heart pounding. We need to come together, all of us. No more hiding behind half-truths. We have to figure this out or lose everything we've worked for. As the crowd nodded, agreeing silently yet fervently, Lisa took a deep breath and opened the folder. The rustle of the papers filled the silence, anticipation hanging in the air. But just as she began to speak, another resounding crash echoed through the room, this time even louder. The lights flickered ominously, and dread settled like a weight upon Jake's chest. Were they truly ready for what lay ahead? Faces turned toward the door, hearts racing once more. What darkness awaited them now, and would they be able to face it together? The answers felt tantalizingly close, yet the path ahead looked more treacherous than ever. Jake's heart hammered in his chest as the lights flickered again, a low hum vibrating through the walls. The air was thick with tension, with every pair of eyes glued to the door, waiting for the next bombshell to drop. Lisa held the folder tightly, determination etched on her face, but Jake could see fear lurking in her eyes, a reflection of his own. Let us not panic, he finally said, his voice cutting through the tremor of uncertainty. Whatever's out there, we're stronger together. We've fought too hard to let fear rule us now. Maria squeezed his hand, grounding him. We need to take control of this narrative. We've been so fearful of the shadows, but tonight, we can bring everything into the light. With that, Lisa took a deep breath, steadying herself. I found evidence of bribes and manipulation contracts that tie Eric to some shady underpinnings of this whole competition framework. We can expose him, but it's crucial that we do it in a way that gathers everyone as support, not just fuels divisiveness. Are you really saying what I think you're saying? Eric shot back, his bravado cracking. You can't just throw those words around, without consequences. You're digging your own graves. Jake felt the crowd stiffen, uncertainty seeping back in like a thick fog. But as he scanned their faces, he saw signs of solidarity beginning to emerge. We're done being afraid, he said, rising to the occasion. We're here to lift each other, not tear ourselves apart. This bakery stands for more than just us. It's about our community, about believing in ourselves and each other. Maria stepped forward, her voice rising in a cascade of defiance. We can tell our story the right way, share our truth. We're not going to let mistrust poison all that has been built. Everyone here has dreams. And if they've been hurt by someone else's greed, it's time we all shed that burden together. She looked toward Lucy, who nodded, then to Sam, and the crowd began to murmur in agreement. The energy shifted, growing from scattered whispers to a tide of unified voices. Jake felt a rush of adrenaline. They were thawing the hardened ice of distrust, the very thing that had threatened to fracture them. The lights flickered once more, casting odd shadows across the room, but in that moment, they were no longer ensnared by fear. They were illuminated by determination, with every shared breath filling the space with courage. "Let us all come clean," Lucy said, stepping up beside Maria. "We've hidden in shadows long enough. This town deserves to know the full truth about us, about everything we've faced." Sam's expression hardened. "Every single one of us has contributed to the tapestry of Maplewood in ways we haven't even realized. If we work together, we can reveal the truth, not just about Eric but about the challenges that bind us." Eric's posture shifted. He was losing ground, and he knew it. "You want to get everyone to rally around you. This is absurd." "Maybe it's just what we need," Jake challenged, stepping even closer. "Maybe the fabric of our community can mend if we're brave enough to expose the flaws in it. If we speak our truths, we want to just be a bakery will be a cornerstone of hope. But it starts now." Nods began to ripple through the crowd, confidence blossoming amid the uncertainty. They were ready to confront their fears, to face the truth, and unite against a common foe. With one decisive nod, Lisa opened the folder, revealing the contents one by one. As she read through the documents, apprehensive murmurs shifted into gasps of disbelief. The roiling undercurrents stirred enough shared indignation to ignite solidarity in the room. "Together, we're unstoppable," Maria declared, a fierce glint in her eye. "No one can choose our paths for us if we decide to fight back." In that whirlwind of emotion and revelation, boundaries melted. Jake felt his fear dissolve, replaced by the fire of unity blazing through the space. They stood there, holding hands, just as they once did as children, and he sensed the true spirit of Maplewood reawakening. As the crowd rallied behind them, joy and hope sparked anew, painting every anguished face with determination. They were ready to fight, no longer alone but a vibrant community forged in love, persistence, and empowerment. Time moved forward. As dreams of joyous laughter at their bakery filled the air, Jake and Maria exchanged relieved grins, hope brightening their hearts. They could achieve this together. They would emerge from this storm stronger, fiery and undeniable, like a beacon of sweet promise shining in the heart of Maplewood. And as the undeniable support erupted through cheers and applause, Jake felt a rush of love fill his heart. "Let's make this happen," he shouted, igniting the transformation that would carry them to share their story with the world. Together, they would break free of the barriers that had held them back, embracing every truth while lifting their community up alongside them. The storm had come, but out of the shadows, a glorious, golden dawn arose, and this was just the beginning. Now, if you were moved by this story, you need to subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive stories. This is the moment to show your support. Hit that like button now to feed the algorithm. Make your voice heard by commenting your thoughts and feelings about this inspiring ending. And don't wait not even one more second to share this incredible journey with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformation unfold. You're part of our community, and every action counts.